In 1976, while Andy Leslie led the All Blacks to South Africa, a young up-and-coming leader took a second All Black team to South America. It was the beginning of the Graham Murray-Jack Gleeson era.
Gleeson had the ability to get the best out of players, as did Murray as a captain. I mean, players wanted to follow Murray. They wanted to do what he wanted. They saw him as a good example on the field and off the field.
Graham Murray's first big test as All Black captain came in 1977 when he led the side to France. It was a team full of older, experienced veterans.
That in itself creates a few problems that you have to deal with in your own mind in terms of being one of the youngest players on the side and captaining people who previously you'd actually looked up to as being heroes.
He was a challenging captain, and on the field he led by example, but he also made changes when it was necessary. So yeah, Graham was probably the best captain that I played with in the All Blacks.
The 77 tour didn't get off to a good start with a first test loss in Toulouse. But that was to provoke the new All Black leadership duo of Murray and Gleeson into seeking innovative tactics, which was to herald the next era of All Black rugby.
We came out of that game knowing that they were very physical and that we hadn't been able to control them physically. And while we knew we could beat them, we really had to look at how we were going to try and play the game.
When Murray took the All Blacks onto the field for the second test in Paris, it was with a game plan that would see the French run off their feet.
And I think we made a conscious effort that we were not going to try and match them up front, and we would play the game very, very quickly.
The Murray-Gleeson plan worked. It gave the All Blacks a win and a drawn series.
In the first minutes of the second half, the All Blacks are going to play this game at pace, it would seem, in the second 40 minutes. Trying to keep the Frenchmen rattled. Bruce Robinson! Stu Wilson! A try!
And we weren't going to give the French an opportunity to rest or to get their thinking and getting their planning down pat. So we just sped the whole game up, and it worked a treat.
Can Stu Wilson get the touch? He's going to be there front. What a try!
1978, the Grand Slam Tour of Britain. The Jack Gleeson-Graham Murray combination had the All Blacks on a roll.
It was a fantastic tour in every respect. Jack Gleeson was innovative with his coaching, a quiet man who really had the respect of his players. Graham Murray, outstanding captain and tactician, knew also how to get the best out of his players, and we also had a base of senior players who had been there and done that.
I think in terms of how people would view it now, I suppose if you look back, I'd say it was a side which had a common vision, which was prepared to work for each other, that was prepared to make sacrifices for each other.
Lawson looking to come through. Push over on, is it? Gary Sears. He's over.
To say that an All Black captains by himself is wrong. I think he, to be successful, you have to have the support and have that ability of other players around you who are prepared to work with you.
Up the All Black captaincy when he refused to play against the 1981 South African touring team. In fact, rugby relations with South Africa throughout the 1980s would have a major impact on the All Blacks. In 1986, when the All Black players, including captain Andy Dalton, went to South Africa with the rebel Cavaliers, they were suspended for 2 games when they returned. That meant when the French came to New Zealand that same season, a new team and a new captain had to be found. The team became known as the Baby Blacks, and the job of captaincy went to David Kirk. Leading the Baby Blacks was to be a unique experience for a first-time All Black captain.
There was just such a tight feeling of obligation to do our best for the All Blacks. They kind of accepted the mantle of being an All Black and delivering for the All Blacks in test matches, absolutely. And so they were really true All Blacks from the moment they got there. None of them would have said that, look, I'm here to fill anyone else's shoes. I am an All Black. I'm going to be a successful All Black.
Names were heard for the first time in the Test arena.
Fitzpatrick with the throw for the All Blacks. Good leap in the middle by Brewer. He got high.
There were names that would soon become part of the All Black folklore.
McGrattan makes a little burst for the All Blacks. Taken in by Earl. Releases it nicely for Kirk. Boddicker having a good game. Bruno Boddicker. John Kerwin. With the strength of Kerwin. Found Harvey. Here's Brewer. Mike Brewer. Great try to the All Blacks.
It was a very easy team to captain in many ways. It didn't require motivation. What the team required was self-confidence and cohesion. There'd been a lot of support for the team in the media building up to that game too, and you could tell New Zealanders really wanted the team to do well. That team was never in charge. We were just running around doing everything we could to win the game. It was kind of bootstraps and everything stretched to breaking point the whole time. So we had to keep playing to win.
Boddicker, drop kick. Second drop kick for the All Blacks.
Some of the seeds were definitely sowed in those two tests. And they actually weren't particularly seeds of introducing new players. They were seeds of beginning to lighten the approach to the game, lightening the culture. People who were playing for their opportunity rather than playing to defend a record.
And there's the final whistle, and a new chapter in New Zealand rugby can be written as the young All Blacks scored a marvellous victory here at Lancaster Park, and I suppose one could say, who needs the Cavaliers?
In 1986, David Kirk and the Baby Blacks won great kudos by beating France, but they then lost to Australia. Going into the second test against the Wallabies, many of the rebel Cavaliers were reinstated to the team. David Kirk was kept on as captain, but his lot was not a happy one.
There was nothing particularly overt, but within a group, you're either acknowledged as a leader and you're part of the team, or you're kind of not. And because the team was then dominated by players who'd been South Africa, I'd say not surprisingly, they were a very tight team, tight group, and really my capacity to lead them, my ability to lead them, and the sense that I was one of the team, if you like, was pretty low. So I was kind of felt excluded, and some of it was probably my own sort of sense of defensiveness about it as well.
Kirk to Kerwin, to Kirk.
I felt pretty excluded, and I was just kind of a interloper to some extent as their captain.
The captain who didn't go.
Yeah.
The boys.
Yeah, exactly. Who let the team down.
Later in 1986, the All Blacks toured France. Jock Hobbs was now captain. Kirk had been dumped.
Heard it on the radio. Wasn't expecting to hear it on the radio. It was just the radio was on in the background, and they just announced they said that the team to tour France had been announced, and then the big item was, and the major controversy or issue or changes that David Kirk has been replaced as captain. So that was what I heard. I was pretty annoyed, actually.
David Kirk became just another casualty in the long list of unceremonial dumpings of captains by the All Blacks. But by far the most controversial sacking of an All Black captain came in 1990 and involved Wayne Buck Shelford. Buck Shelford is perhaps the most charismatic captain to have led the All Blacks. His naval background complemented his natural leadership skills, and his playing ability earned the respect of his teammates.
I enjoyed captaining the side because I don't believe good sides need a lot of captaining, they just need a bit of leadership. I believe that your captain has got to be a good player, and he's got to lead from the front in his performance. I believe he's got to be in a position where he can lead, and lead from being an out front sort of person.
Shelford's captaincy coincided with the Alex Wiley coaching era.
You couldn't ask for much more from a captain as far as leadership was concerned on the field and on the way he did it himself. He was all guts.
But guts was not to be enough when Scotland toured here in 1990. Shelford's performance as both player and captain was to come under the microscope.
The panel was concerned about Wayne Shelford's form. I think it's through the Scotland series. We had talked about taking him out of the team.
New Zealand won the first test, but none too convincingly. Things got worse in the second. Shelford was a marked man.
wasn't playing to his best. Not the Buck Shelford we knew. And I can tell you, it was a hell of a decision to come to look at.
New Zealand narrowly won the second test through the boot of Grant Fox. It's not the way we like our All Blacks to win, especially against Scotland.
6 out of 6 today for Grant Fox. And the All Blacks in front. For the first time in the game.
The undefeated captain was gone. Buck Shelford's All Black career was over.
Alex took us by fright, quite shocked when he decided to take him out.
I don't know that much about the actual being dropped and what actually happened behind the scenes, but I believe there was a very, very big power play in the All Blacks at that stage to get rid of me as the All Black captain. And that was Aucklanders.
That's absolute nonsense. There was no plot, and I was never aware of anyone having any views. The players weren't even talked to about it. It wasn't an issue for the players. I think Gary Whitten got as much of a shock as anyone when he was notified by Alex Wiley that he'd be taking over the captaincy.
First I knew was a phone call saying that I'm now the new All Black captain. You weren't asked, you were told. You don't ask to do the job, it just happens.
There wasn't much dialogue with Wayne about it at all, and there should have been. He was a great player, deserved that.
You remember little wee stories from the old players like the Haydens and the Cowboy Shaws keep saying to you, don't just be an All Black, be one they remember forever.
It seems Buck Shelford will be remembered forever. The Bring Back Buck campaign has elevated him to cult status.
It's quite funny, actually. 10, 11 years later, and you still see the odd sign around the world. It's been everywhere, and probably people look at it and think, who is this Buck? So the thing is, it's a rugby thing, and only rugby people would know. But it's quite interesting. It's laughable, I reckon.
We know we can depend on you to get the job done. Because when it comes to rugby, Buck is number one. Say they number. Say it again. One. Say they number.
In all the years I've been following rugby, and in particular observing the role of All Black coach, the late 1980s and early 90s have been by far the most turbulent. In those years, it was various factions vying for the role. North versus South, John Hart versus Alex Wiley, Laurie Mains versus John Hart. In 1987, John Hart took the All Blacks to Japan. But in 1988, Alex Wiley got the job when Wales and Australia were the opponents.
It was a big surprise, and perhaps in some ways it might have been a bit quick.
It didn't surprise me, really, that he would be the coach ahead of me. I mean, he was an All Black, I wasn't. There were a lot of other factors, I think, and I was from Auckland, and I don't think that helped me.
Here's Michael Jones. Look at this. Where's the support? Kerwin. Sensational try.
In those early days of the Wiley regime, the All Blacks reigned supreme with an unbeaten record from 1988 through to 1990.
It didn't matter where we travelled after 87, because it was always the All Blacks world champs. All Blacks world champs. And that label was being pushed there all the time.
1990, and in the third test against Australia at Athletic Park in Wellington, chinks began to appear in the All Black armour.
Chris was a fantastic coach in his early days, and we had a great run, 88, 89, some happy, great years. In 90, the wheels started to fall off.
It's 30 metres out.
Despite winning the first two tests and retaining the Bledisloe Cup, the All Blacks lost in Wellington. It was the beginning of a downward spiral for Alex Wiley. The end came for Alex Wiley at the 1991 Rugby World Cup. The rugby union knew there'd been problems with the coaching of the All Blacks that season. So they went ahead and appointed John Hart as co-coach with Alex Wiley. I wasn't the only one who knew that was a recipe for disaster.
It was taken on by the New Zealand Rugby Union to bring in two coaches of equal standing. Well, it didn't work.
Wasn't in Alex's interest, wasn't in mine. I don't think it worked. It was not a meeting of the minds at that stage because we had different philosophies and we're coming from different perspectives. I think the union were trying their best to do something to turn the boat around, but I think the boat was taking in water at that time and it was too late.
Both Wiley and Hart had worked successfully together as co-selectors at the 87 World Cup. But the co-coaching combination in 91 was ill-fated.
That was a mistake, putting John and Alex together at a level of equal responsibility. I think the decision that the New Zealand Rugby Union needed to make at the time was, yes, Chris, we're supporting you, and therefore we go through with you, or no, Grizz, you can't do the job, we are sacking you and we are putting John in. But the other, that situation, putting the two together, was a halfway house. It was a cop-out.
It was ludicrous. Yeah, it never was going to work because trying to share authority, and it made it difficult for the players, made it difficult for me. I mean, I didn't enjoy it. I mean, I thought it was the most lonely period of time I'd had in rugby. I really couldn't wait to get home.
I just hope that it's seen as trying to do the best I could for the game, being honest about it. Because that's all I've ever tried to do.
The co-coaching debacle of the 1991 World Cup saw the end of Alex Wiley's reign. The heir apparent was John Hart. But he'd also been tainted by his World Cup co-coaching role, and yet again he was to miss out on the top job.
I thought I'd done what I'd been asked to do in the World Cup in 91, and so I thought I had done enough to earn the job in 92, so I was pretty devastated when Laurie Mains was awarded the job.
The first challenge for Laurie Mains as coach in 92 was a demanding tour of Australia, then straight on to South Africa. It was the beginning of another strong coach-captain relationship, the beginning of the Sean Fitzpatrick era.
Sean and I had what I would consider a very professional, a very close rugby relationship. I had such huge respect for him because of what he had achieved as a player and of the mental toughness and resilience that was there, and the sheer quality of the player. Also, the huge respect that he was held in by the rest of the players.
He had a real passion for the game, and being an All Black, he had that passion for the All Blacks. He knew what it was like to be an All Black, and wanted everyone who wore that All Blacks jersey to wear it with pride and passion.
Little, Brewer, on his own Mike Brewer. Kerwin's out there. Great pass to Kerwin. Support from Inga. Try coming up. Frank Butt.
Fabulous try.
Brilliant try.
The Fitzpatrick Mains era saw mixed results, but it was a team that grew in stature over the next 4 years, from losing the Bledisloe Cup in 92 through victories over most of the other rugby-playing nations. For me, as with most New Zealanders, the biggest disappointment of the Laurie Mains era was the loss in extra time in the final of the 1995 Rugby World Cup in South Africa. Laurie Mains might not have been everyone's cup of tea as a coach. Certainly the New Zealand news media never quite understood him, his motives or his methods. But his players certainly did. And they showed it in Paris at the end of the Tour of France in 1995.
Rush through. Beautiful run by Rush. A great try for Eric Rush. Osborne in.
The All Blacks lost the first test in Toulouse.
Super try. Love it.
But bounced back with an emphatic victory to farewell Laurie Mains.
Only Lomu could get a try like that.
I just wanted to go onto that field after that game, ignore everything, except I wanted to get to my players to say thanks for giving me the quality of rugby that I've dreamed about. And when the two Brook brothers just zeroed in on me and did what they did, I just felt so humble. They had been my nemesis, France, and then to bury it at their main headquarters the way we did, there was a message there. I was always seen as this hard-nosed bugger that was tough on players, ruthless in his selections, and all the rest of it. And people don't understand the great fondness that I developed for these players, that they're in here and they will be for the rest of my time.
Tri-Nations rugby. Sean Fitzpatrick and John Hart had led the All Blacks to victory in the first season in 1996. In 1997, the success continued. The Hart era was well underway, but the Mains legacy was still apparent.
I think the selectors did get it right in '95. I think Laurie Mains made a lot of very good decisions in '95, and you know, in '96 and '97, the successes we had, you know, he's got to take some credit because, you know, he chose some of the players.
Sean Fitzpatrick had a love-hate relationship with South Africa. He loved playing there. The South Africans hated him.
He's not liked in South Africa. I must say, I admired his durability as a player. I admired his enormous skill at all the phases of the game that he performed. I just didn't like his cynicism on the field. I thought that he was the devil with the face of the angel.
I got to the stage where I never used to walk onto the grounds before a game because I used to almost cause a frenzy within the crowd of the booing and that was, you know, something that you know, I tried to steer away from. I can remember a gentleman at King's Park telling me that I was the J.R. Ewing of world rugby, the player that we love to hate, which is fine. It was all things that used to motivate me to play well.
Norm Hewitt is on the field. Sean Fitzpatrick has left the field. Now that is a big surprise. He never goes off.
Unlike many previous captains, it was not politics which would see the end of the Fitzpatrick tenure of the captaincy. It was injury.
I'd always thought that I could go through to the World Cup in '99. It was would have been a nice finale. And that would have been great. I would love to have done that.
The leadership and the experience went, and all of a sudden, you know, that left a big hole.
That hole turned into a chasm. Last year, the All Blacks lost 5 tests on the trot.
And what a skillful try that is! Van der Westhuizen, honey ball. Skidstack gets there. Oh, they've tried to put space on Jason Little, and they have! That is a great try! And they've done it! Cregan! Oh, try!
When you lose one game for the All Blacks, that's pretty tough. Yeah, we just got into a bit of a spiral last year, which we, you know, in the end couldn't get out of.
We lost games we could have won. We lost 5 in a row, as you know, people remind me of so often. We could have won 4 of those games, but we didn't. You can't make excuses, you know. I mean, there were reasons behind it, but in the end, we weren't successful. Hugely disappointing.
If we'd had one loss, still would have taken that loss really hard. I mean, I was just part of a team that felt we'd not let not just ourselves down, we'd let a lot of people down. And certainly building into this year, there's a lot of resolve there to put things right.
It was a really difficult year, and you know, there's no doubt I thought about getting out, and there were plenty of people wanted me to.
I learned a hell of a lot last year, not just myself, you know, not just playing wise or you know, off the field. I learned a hell of a lot, and certainly that will make me stronger. And I look forward to the future with a good enthusiasm.
So almost 100 years on from Dave Gallagher, the success of the All Blacks today is still closely linked with the quality of its leadership, both captains and coaches. And as the 1999 Rugby World Cup approaches, maybe the spirit of Dave Gallagher could be invoked again for the All Blacks. Gallagher was a man who went over the top for his country, both in battle and on the rugby field.
Legends of the All Blacks with Keith Quinn was proudly presented by Ford and Air New Zealand.
Crossfire is next on One, and after tonight's news.